like after you beat yourself up and after you stop the bleeding on your forehead, you know, that's where you got to sit down and you got to be rational. You got to say, okay, what can I do here?
So my question was in regards to reflecting on um, successes versus failures, because I think it's really, really something that's like I think it's intuitive to reflect on failures much more. Not it's it's not easy, but you look back on a day and you're like, wow, could I have sucked anymore? And then you're like, okay, what should I have done differently? It's easy to ask that question.
It is.
Right. But in the case, because I also have had those days where it's just like everything goes right, for some reason or another, it's just like everything just kind of clicks.
Yep.
And in those cases, when you have those days, it's like, what, and I know everyone's process is different, but from the perspective of reflecting on successes, it's like, how do you kind of go about looking at those situations as things that you could still improve upon when they do go as well as you expect them to go. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, okay. So one of the things that you have to be able to do, and this is very difficult because humans are emotionally driven, is that you're passing judgment on an outcome. Okay. The universe does not care about you. Okay. Sorry. I know your mom probably does, right? But the universe does not care. And so the universe produces these outcomes, and it doesn't say one is good or one is bad. It just says what is. And so that's the first step that you have to go. You have to say, this is just an outcome. So you miss a lift. Let's just say that you're training, you miss a lift that you think you should have got. Okay. It's just an outcome. There's a lot of factors that went into that outcome that you have no idea exist. Okay. And then there's some that you might be able to surmise in retrospect. You go, oh, I had a crappy night of sleep. That kind of makes sense. So you blame that, even though it was because you didn't eat enough oatmeal that day, right? So you tell yourself a story after the fact to come up with the solution, right? And so what you need to focus on is process. Okay, so anybody that's in the purple room knows that I have 3 pictures above my big giant mirrors. And the middle one is process. And so what you do is you don't change the process, regardless of the outcome. You have to ask yourself the same questions. What happened? What went into that I have any measure of control over? What could I have done differently? So no matter how great you think you are that day, where you're breaking your arm, patting yourself on the back, or how much you think you suck that you bang your head on the steering wheel like I do on the way home. Right. And so you got to stop judging it. And then you just say, this is what is. And then you like, literally, it's the same process. The hardest thing to do is when you're feeling so good about yourself and everything did seem to go well. Think about this. How many favorable outcomes are there? I'm asking you a question.
Should I say the answer that I was going to say, or the one that I think you want me to say?
I want you to say whatever you want.
Zero.
No, it's like, okay, but it's like, okay, so let's just say you've got 455 on the bar and you want 5. Okay. And you get 5. Right. And you rack and you go, man, that was easy. Okay. So you accomplished the initial task, but what if you could have got 8 and you just stopped yourself because you had 5 in your head? So would 8 have been more favorable than 5 under those circumstances? Well, yeah, it kind of like, if you're a lifter, you go, hey, I got 8 where I should have got 5. What an awesome day. So 5 was favorable, but 8 could have been better, right? So there's degrees of so if I got this dead center line and on this side everything is favorable and everything is crappy over here, this is a lot less crappy than this one, and this is a lot less favorable than this one, right? So there's this infinite number of possibilities that you might rank as good or bad, right? And so you got to start thinking about not in degrees, because it doesn't matter. So again, we go right back and we say, well, we got to start thinking about process, because if this is the center line and I'm only here and I go, I was successful. Well, why didn't you go here? So I need to ask the same questions. It's like, so again, it's like, okay, I'm on this side of favorable because that's the decision that my brain made. It's like, okay, I feel good about myself now because I did something nice and good and whatever. Okay. But why didn't I do better? So ask the same questions because it's the same thing. It's like all I did was move the 0 point to where I landed, and now everything over there is better. It's like, okay, well, why didn't I go there? Well, because that's what you got to figure out. So it's your process. So you ask yourself the same questions, like, okay, what happened? What did I put into this that may have been an influence? What are the other possible influences? Maybe the ambient room temperature was a little too cold or a little too hot, or maybe there was sun in my eyes that was reflecting off the mirror because you like to look at yourself in the mirror when you do your squats. Right. Like there's like all of these things. Maybe maybe, you know, I don't know. Does anybody still listen to Slipknot when they lift weights? I don't know. I just remember that from the olden days. It's like maybe I had the wrong music on. Maybe you're listening to like Air Supply from the 1980s, and it was like it chilled you out too much. Maybe you had on a pink shirt, and like Monica. Like, is that a pink shirt, Monica? Yeah. So maybe you had a pink shirt on, and we all know that pink makes you weak in the gym, right? So again, you just have to look at this as a process, because process never goes this way, right? It's always like, right? So again, there's always going to be unknown unknowns, and there's going to be known unknowns, and there's going to be knowns, and then it's like, so you manage what you can, but focus on process. Stop judging yourself whether you are right or wrong. And like I said, and I know you're going to do it because you're human. We all do it. But this is when you literally sit down and you're doing a reflection on something very specific, instead of like after you beat yourself up and after you stop the bleeding on your forehead, that's where you got to sit down, and then you got to be rational. You got to say, okay, what can I do here? What influences do I have? What measures can I control? That's what you want to do.
That was awesome. Yeah, super insightful.
Okay.
Thank you.